Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday. John Tracy here again. I'm glad for another opportunity to share some midweek morning encouragement with you from the scriptures. And I've been personally really helped recently by something that I heard another pastor say. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about how the Lord has been using that in my personal life. If you're at all familiar with the story of the Bible, then certainly you're aware that Jesus was frequently asked during his time on earth, what's the greatest commandment? And his answer was consistently always the same. He would say, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. The two are interwoven together. They're really wrapped up together as one. In fact, you can't do one without doing the other. One is the proof of the other. And so I just want to take a couple minutes and look at a place in the Bible that I think helps us to understand what that's really talking about. John 21, that's where I'm headed. And it's about Peter, probably the most famous of the 12 disciples. Peter's certainly one of those guys that had some real high points in his life that are celebrated in Scripture, but there were definitely some real low points also. And probably the lowest of the low moments for Peter began in the upper room just before Jesus' crucifixion, when Jesus was gathered there around the table with all of his disciples, and he looks across the table and he says, hey, one of you guys here tonight is going to deny me. And Peter, in classic form, chimes in right away. He's like, man, even if everybody denies you, Jesus, I will never do that. In fact, for emphasis, he even adds, I would rather die than deny you. And Jesus is like, is that so? I'm really glad you brought that up, because actually, Peter, you're the one I'm talking about. Before the rooster crows, you're going to be the one to deny me, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And you know the story. That's exactly what happened. And why? Because Peter didn't want to suffer the same gruesome, tortuous death that he saw Jesus suffer. He wasn't willing to pay that ultimate price of identifying with Christ and his cross. He loved Jesus to a certain extent, but not enough to stand with him when it would cost him something. And when the pressure was on, his allegiance was to himself instead of to Jesus Christ. So later, John 21, Jesus shows up in one of his post-resurrection appearances to address that issue head on. And he appears to all the disciples there by the Sea of Tiberias. And in John 21:4, we're told that the guys had been out fishing all night long. And as seems to be always the case, they're not catching anything. And so from the shore in the early morning, the mist is rising off the sea and everything's super calm and quiet. Jesus is like, hey, are you catching any fish? I was actually right there on the shore of this sea back in 2019. It's not a large body of water, and so his voice would have easily carried across the sea to the ears of these fishermen in their boats. Have you caught any fish tonight? And like any grumpy fisherman who's been up all night long with no luck, they're like, nope, no fish tonight. And Jesus is like, hey, try this. Cast your fishing nets on the other side of your boat. Maybe you'll catch some. Now, I have to admit, fishing is not my area of expertise. I almost never catch any fish when I go fishing. It's a bit of a sore subject for me, actually, but even for a novice like me, this really doesn't seem like the most awesome of fishing advice that Jesus is giving. I mean, I could be wrong, but if you're not catching any fish in this spot in the sea, maybe change spots, right? Maybe take the boat somewhere else. Maybe take a look at that fish finder thing that fishermen use that seems to never help me at all, but maybe for somebody that knows what they're doing, use that. But Jesus is like, no, just cast the nets on the other side of the boat. Really? I mean, I'm pretty sure fish can swim under the boat, Jesus. What are the chances, right? But they do what Jesus says, and again, I'm sure you know what happens. A miracle takes place, and they start pulling in more fish than they can even handle. So they quickly figure out this is Jesus Christ talking to us on the shore, and they rush over there. They cook up some of the fish to have breakfast and spend some time with him. And I want you to think about Peter at that moment. John 21:15 says this. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Because here's the thing. Peter had a love priority problem. He had heard Jesus say many times that real disciples are supposed to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. But the problem for Peter was that he knew that requirement in his head, but practically in application, there were some other things that he loved more. And so Jesus patiently takes some time here to highlight that the reason Peter had denied Christ 3 times was specifically because he did not love Jesus the most. You say you love me, but you don't love me the most. There are some other things that you love more. And that's why when push came to shove, you demonstrated the real love of your life yourself. And so he asked Peter, do you love me more than these? Now, have you ever wondered what the these were? When Jesus said, Peter, do you love me more than these? These what, right? Well, he's surrounded by all of his fishing buddies. Maybe Jesus was talking about them. Do you love me more than your friends? In other words, Peter, it seems that every time things get really bad for you, you just run back to your same old friends. The same people that you used to lean on heavily before you said you would lean heavily on me. You just run back and you lean on them for advice and counsel and help and support instead of me. Maybe that's it. I'm not so sure that's the best answer, but maybe. How about this one? Do you love me more than they love me? Is he comparing Peter's love for him with how much John and Matthew and Andrew and Bartholomew loved him? Do you love me more than they love me, Peter? Nah, I don't think that's it. I don't think Jesus is interested in those kind of comparisons at all. I don't really think it's either of those things. I think it's this. I think it's the stuff. I think he's saying, Peter, do you love me more than catching fish? Do you love me more than your boat and your nets and your bait, your business, your livelihood, your comfort zone? Do you love me more than this way of life that you know? Have you forgotten that I've already given you a new primary job? I've given you a new supreme mission. You're supposed to be my witness, and I haven't even gone back to heaven yet, and you're already back here doing your old job. Things got just a little hard for you, and you experienced a little bit of failure, and the pressure's on, and what are you doing back over here? Fishing again. Man, I can relate with this. This following Jesus thing, when it costs me, when it's hard, when I have to suffer, when I'm made uncomfortable. I think I'm just going to go back and I'm going to do what I'm good at. I'm tired of struggling all the time. I'm tired of suffering. I got to start posting some wins in the win column. So what I need to do is just start looking out for myself for a change. Can you relate with why Peter went back to fishing? I feel like I've been a failure lately. I'm going through some tough times. I'm just going to get back to what I should have been doing the whole time. Forget this, right? And can you see Jesus Christ, the Lord of the ages, looking at these feeble symbols of security and comfort for Peter? The smell of the fish, can you smell it cooking? Can you hear a couple of the guys down there scraping their knives as they're cleaning the fish? Can you smell the mildew on the wet nets and hear the water lapping up on the shore there? These were the familiar sounds and smells and feelings of comfort for Peter and his crew. And Jesus wants to know, Peter, do you love me more than these? Listen, there's tremendous encouragement in this for all of us. I want to ask you a similar question. What are the these of your comfortable way of life that are competing right now with your love for Jesus Christ? And maybe I could give you some examples to just kind of think through for a little bit. Can you identify with any things that jockey with first love in your life? I love my reputation, Jesus, I'll follow you a long way, but there comes a point when my reputation, what people think about me at work and in the community and in my family, when my reputation is going to suffer because of my love for you. And so Jesus is like, that's what I'm talking about. Do you love me more than your reputation? Or how about this? I love my preferences. I like things to be done a certain way. I don't like it when things change. I want things done according to my preferences. Right. Me too. And Jesus is trying to tear that all down in our lives. Why? Because, newsflash, we're not on this planet as his children for ourselves and our own preferences. And if you signed up for a Christianity so that Jesus could grant you all of your wishes like some kind of genie in a bottle to make you happy, healthy, wealthy, and terrific, then I'm sorry to be the one to have to tell you this, but you signed up for the wrong deal, my friend. Because that is not the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel is we give up everything in our lives in exchange for his righteousness. We die with Christ. We take up our own cross of suffering and we follow him. Romans 12 actually says that after all Jesus has done for us, it's only our reasonable service to sacrifice everything in our lives on the altar for Jesus. So the question is this: what things in your life and mine are competing with chaste, committed, first place love for the Lord? Here's another one. This one might be hard. My family. I love my family. This is what my life is all about. My children, my spouse, my parents. I can't live without them. Now, of course the Bible says that if you don't take care of your own house, you've denied the faith and you're worse than an unbeliever. So family certainly matters, but it doesn't matter more than God. That's what we're saying. And when we allow our family to matter more than God, we've actually put our family at risk. Do you understand that? Do you love me more than these? Think about it. What are the these in your life? I love my comfort. I love my security. I love my country. I love my freedom. I love my health. I love my capitalistic society. I love the American dream. I love it when my political party is in charge. I love it when things in my life and my family and my country are going the way that I want them to go. Well, sure you do. But Jesus says, do you love me more than these? Okay, one more, at least for now. I love my plans. You know, I have plans for what I'm going to do with my life, where I'm going to go, what I'm going to accomplish. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you and I ponder the pages of our lives that have yet to be written in the future, or even for our loved ones, followers of Christ must get to the place where we are willing to joyfully write on the top of every page, Jesus Christ first. And whatever that means for the rest of the page, no matter how badly it may hurt, I know it's going to work out in the end for my best. But when I insist on my reputation and preferences and family and comfort and country as the thing that must come first, think about it carefully. Do you have things in your life competing for your greatest affection of your life? And before you answer, Jesus makes it super clear in John 21 how you can be sure. Do I have a problem with loving Jesus most? Well, the answer is yes, if there is a disconnect between what I say about love for the Lord and what I do to demonstrate that love for other people. Is there a disconnect? Do I say, oh, how I love Jesus, but my words aren't loving. My attitude isn't loving. My submission to God-given authority is not loving. The hobby horse message that I pontificate to the world around me is not one of love. Does what I say on Sunday about the Great Commandment match what I say and do and think all week long in real life, street level, practical ways? Jesus asked Peter in verse 15, do you love me more than these? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs, verse 16, tend my sheep, verse 17, feed my sheep. Now, contrary to popular opinion, this passage is actually not about quality or depth of love. It's about conflicting loves that distract from our primary calling to love Jesus Christ the Lord the most. He's saying it's not enough to verbalize that you love the Lord if there's no proof of love flowing out of your life. Do you love me? Well, yes, I do. Okay, then, prove your love by actually loving others. So how's that going for you? I mean, I'll admit it. As one prone to selfishness, Western world, American Christianity, raised to believe that life is all about me and my inalienable rights as a citizen of this country, what will it take to bring my testimony of love for others to a screeching halt? You know, well, what's it going to cost me, right? What will I get out of it? Will I have to suffer? Will I be made uncomfortable? Will I have to give up something that I love? Wrong questions for somebody who says they love Jesus most. How about this instead? What can I willingly give up to further the cause of Christ? Where can I gladly help to serve and love others? What suffering am I privileged to endure as I identify with the cross of Christ for the greater good of his mission? At the end of the paragraph in verse 19, Jesus gives two final words of summary that is the solution for slaying any conflicting lesser love that might be surfacing in our lives. He says this very succinctly, follow me. And just prior to that, he explained to Peter that he was going to have to also suffer a tortuous death just like Jesus. You see, following Jesus requires us to also take up a cross and suffer. Never have we been promised a comfortable, free, peaceful life this side of heaven. So why do we freak out when those things are threatened? Well, Jesus is telling us why. Because we don't love him more than these. You see? I love Jesus so much. Oh, really? Is it really Jesus Christ that you love? Or is it yourself and your comfortable way of life? We'll see when you suffer. We'll see when you're made uncomfortable. What pours out of your life, then that's the test. It's those words and those actions. When you're in the crucible of life, that's the clarity for your claim that you love Jesus most. And I would go so far as to say that suffering is the very best thing to cure consumeristic, self-centered Christianity for those who have climbed back on the throne of their own hearts and have let their love for Jesus go far distant in the rearview mirror. When I'm made uncomfortable, I find out what really matters most to me. When I suffer loss, when I suffer injustice, when I have to wear a mask, when I have to follow the rules, when I don't get my way, when I think I know more than the people in charge, when I lose freedoms that I enjoy, when I suffer disappointments, when I'm reminded that I'm not the boss of my life. Listen, these are God's good sovereign gifts to me to accomplish his will in my life. and in his world as he calls me to follow his path of suffering, as I just take my place in his great mission to further the gospel of Jesus Christ in the world. And while there's certainly nothing wrong with loving and being grateful for my job and my family and my country and my way of life, none of that must ever get even remotely close to this first category of loving God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the test of whether or not it is the degree of genuine love that is flowing from my life and into the lives of other people, especially in the most difficult of times. Do you really love me? Asked Jesus. Then why are you so angry? Why are you so resistant? Why are you so unsubmissive to my sovereign plan? Why are you so unwilling to follow the plan of suffering that I've set before you? You see, friend, wherever you're watching this video, let's pray together that God will give us grace to truly love him with heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to demonstrate that today with real life acts of genuine love for others, most especially when doing so costs us something as we serve on mission for him. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next Wednesday morning for Midweek Morning Encouragement.